I'm Lieutenant Commander Tracy Johnson, 32, a career officer who worked her way up from nothing to earn a place on Black Ops missions most people will never hear about. For years, I carried my family, covering their bills, stepping in during every emergency, believing loyalty was enough. But right before deployment, my sister texted me, "Don't trust Mom and Dad. They sold your file." Minutes later, I looked at the transport pilot and froze. He wasn't one of ours. Have you ever been betrayed by the very people you sacrificed everything for? If so, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. Before I get into what happened, let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to stand tall after being wronged, hit like and subscribe for more true stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming your worth. What happened next might shock you. I should have seen it coming. Looking back, the signs were there for months, small things that didn't quite fit, conversations that felt rehearsed, moments when my parents' eyes would dart away just a fraction too quickly. But when you love someone, you make excuses. You tell yourself they're just stressed, just going through a rough patch, just being themselves. The luxury items started appearing around Thanksgiving. A new leather sectional in their living room, the kind with cup holders and massage features. "Early Christmas present to ourselves," Mom said, running her hand along the pristine armrest. "Your father's been working so hard." Dad nodded, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. 20% off at the showroom. I'd been over to their house the week before. The old couch had been fine, worn, sure, but functional. They'd complained about money just 2 months earlier, asking if I could help with the electric bill. Now they had a $4,000 sectional. "Business must be picking up," I said. "Oh, you know how it is," Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Feast or famine in sales." But Dad sold insurance. Had for 15 years. There were no feast or famine cycles, just steady, modest commissions that kept them comfortable but not flush. The questions started during Christmas dinner. Casual at first, the kind of things any parent might ask about their daughter's work. But my work wasn't the kind you discussed over mashed potatoes. "So these missions," Dad said, carving the turkey with theatrical precision, "how do they decide who goes where?" "It's classified, Dad. You know that." "Oh, come on." Mom laughed, passing the cranberry sauce. "We're family. Surely you can tell us something interesting." "Like what?" "Well, are you trusted with anything really important? Or do they just send you on the regular stuff?" The way she said it, regular stuff, made something twist in my stomach. Like my work was a hobby, something cute I did to pass time. "Mom, I can't. We're just curious," Dad interrupted. Proud parents wanting to know about their daughter's career. Is that so wrong? My sister Kate caught my eye across the table. She was picking at her green beans, not eating, just moving them around her plate in small, deliberate circles. "It's just work," I said finally. "Nothing glamorous." But they kept pushing. Gentle nudges wrapped in parental concern. How long would I be gone on the next deployment? Which countries was I cleared for? Did I work with anyone they'd recognize from the news? "You ask a lot of questions," I said. "We worry," Mom replied. "Sue us for caring." After dinner, Kate followed me outside while I loaded leftovers into my car. The December air was sharp, and she hugged her sweater tight around her shoulders. "They're different when you're not around," she said quietly. "Different how?" "They talk about you like you're a stranger." She glanced back at the house, where warm light spilled from the kitchen window. "Like you're some kind of resource they're managing." "Kate, I'm serious. Last week Mom was on the phone with someone, talking about your clearance level." I only heard part of it, but she was taking notes. "Taking notes about what?" "I don't know." But when she saw me listening, she hung up fast. Said it was work stuff. Mom didn't work. Hadn't in years, not since Dad's insurance business got established. I wanted to dismiss it. Kate was young, barely 22, probably misreading normal parental pride as something sinister. But the way she looked at me, worried, almost frightened, made it hard to brush off. "Maybe they're just proud," I said, though the words felt hollow. "Maybe." Kate pulled her sweater tighter. "But be careful, okay? Something feels wrong." The next few weeks brought more incongruities. A new Mercedes in their driveway lease deal, Dad explained when I asked. Expensive dinners out, talk of a cruise to Alaska, Mom wearing a watch I'd never seen before. And always the questions. Subtle but persistent. How did security clearances work? What happened to classified information when someone left the service? Did I keep files at home? Just curious, they'd say when I deflected. Trying to understand your world. But understanding and interrogation are different things. Understanding comes from love, from genuine interest in someone's life. Interrogation comes from need, the kind of need that makes people forget about boundaries, about respect, about basic human decency. I started limiting my visits. Made excuses about work, about being tired, about having other plans. It wasn't that I suspected anything specific, not yet. But something felt off, like a frequency only I could hear, a discordant note in conversations that should have felt natural. You're being paranoid, I told myself. These are your parents. But Kate's words kept echoing. They talk about you like you're a stranger. The last dinner I had with them was in early March. They'd insisted I come over, said they had something to celebrate. When I arrived, they were both dressed up, Dad in his good shirt, Mom in the dress she usually saved for church. What's the occasion? Can't we just want to see our daughter? Mom smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. During dinner, they were more aggressive with their questions. Not subtle anymore, not wrapped in parental concern. Direct asks about my deployment schedule, about the people I worked with, about the kinds of operations I was involved in. I've told you, I can't discuss. Oh, honey, Mom interrupted, we're not asking for state secrets. Just general information. The kind of thing you'd tell any employer on a resume. My work isn't resume material. But surely you could know. I set down my fork. I couldn't. The silence that followed was heavy, loaded with unspoken frustration. Dad pushed food around his plate. Mom stared at her wine glass. Finally, Kate spoke up. She's doing important work. Isn't that enough? Of course, Dad said quickly. We're proud. Very proud. But the damage was done. The mask had slipped just enough for me to see what was underneath, not pride, not love, not concern. Something else entirely. Something that made my skin crawl. I left early that night, claiming fatigue. As I walked to my car, I heard raised voices from inside the house. Not the words, just the tone, sharp, accusatory, desperate. Kate texted me later. They're fighting about something. I can't make it out, but they keep saying your name. I didn't respond. Didn't know how to respond. Because deep down, in a place I didn't want to acknowledge, I was starting to understand what Kate had been trying to tell me. My parents weren't proud of me. They were pricing me. The transport was idling on the tarmac when my phone buzzed. Standard pre-deployment protocol, no personal devices once we were airborne, so this was my last chance to check messages. I expected the usual. Good luck texts from friends, maybe a joke from Kate about bringing back souvenirs from whatever country I couldn't tell her I was visiting. Instead, I got 5 words that stopped my world. Don't trust Mom and Dad. They sold your file. The message was from Kate, sent 12 minutes earlier. I read it again, certain I'd misunderstood something. Then a third time, slower, parsing each word like it was written in a foreign language. Johnson, move your ass. Sergeant Martinez called from the transport door. We're wheels up in 5. I waved him off, stepping away from the aircraft. My hands were shaking, actually shaking, as I typed back, "What do you mean sold?" The response came immediately. Bank records. 8 million wire transfer this morning. I broke into Dad's computer. I'm sorry. I'm so effing sorry. $8 million. I looked up at the transport, its engines warming with that particular whine that usually meant adventure, purpose, the work I'd trained my whole life to do. Now it sounded like a trap closing. The pilot was visible through the cockpit window, running through his pre-flight checks. I'd flown with hundreds of pilots over the years, and something about body language, posture, the way someone holds their shoulders, it becomes second nature to read. This pilot was wrong. Not obviously wrong, not dramatically wrong, but wrong in the way that keeps people like me alive. His shoulders were too stiff. His scan pattern was too methodical, like he was checking boxes on a list rather than preparing for flight. And when he glanced back at the passenger compartment, his eyes lingered too long on specific seats. On my seat. Johnson. Martinez again, more insistent. What's the holdup? Just need a minute, Sarge. I called back, keeping my voice steady. I walked toward the aircraft like everything was normal, but my mind was racing. Kate wouldn't lie about something like this. Couldn't lie about something like this. Which meant my parents, my actual parents, had sold classified information about my work, my clearances, my deployments to someone willing to pay $8 million. Someone who'd put their own pilot in the cockpit of a military transport. The insignia on the pilot's uniform was correct, but the placement was off by maybe an inch. The kind of detail that would fool anyone who wasn't intimately familiar with military protocols. The kind of detail that someone would get wrong if they were copying from photographs rather than wearing the uniform every day. I climbed aboard, nodding to Martinez, stowing my gear in the overhead compartment. Normal behavior. Nothing to see here. But as I settled into my seat, I pulled out my secure tablet and accessed my banking logs, not the regular account Kate would have seen, but the encrypted military financial network that tracked hazard pay, classified bonuses, and security clearances compensation. There it was. A withdrawal authorization, submitted this morning at 0347 hours. My security file, my deployment records, my psychological profile, my emergency contacts, my medical history, everything compiled into a neat digital package and sold to an unnamed third party for $8 million. The authorization was signed with my parents' legal names. Harold and Margaret Johnson listed as next of kin in my emergency contacts. A designation that, in certain circumstances, gave them limited access to my military records for insurance and medical purposes. Limited access they'd apparently expanded into full commercial exploitation. You okay, Johnson? Martinez was studying my face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Just thinking about the mission, I said. First time nerves? I almost laughed. If only it were that simple. The engines reached full power, and we started rolling. Through the small window, I watched the ground fall away, the airfield shrinking to a grid of runways and buildings. Normal takeoff, normal ascent, normal everything except for the pilot who wasn't supposed to be there, and the $8 million my parents had earned by selling me out. Kate's words echoed in my head. They talk about you like you're a stranger. Now I understood why. Because to them, I wasn't their daughter. I was inventory. A collection of clearances and access codes and classified knowledge that they'd finally found a buyer for. $8 million. I'd been supporting them for years. Not dramatically, not enough to break my own budget, but consistently. Car payments when they were short. Help with the mortgage during Dad's slow seasons. Christmas presents for Kate, birthday dinners, little expenses that added up over time. None of it had been enough. None of it had mattered. Because the whole time, they'd been calculating my real worth. Not as their daughter, not as someone they loved, but as a commodity in the intelligence marketplace. The transport leveled off at cruising altitude. Around me, my team settled in for the long flight, some reading, some sleeping, some playing cards. Normal pre-mission routine for everyone except the soldier whose own parents had just sold her to the highest bidder. I closed my eyes and tried to think through the implications. If they'd sold my file, someone now knew everything about me. Where I lived, where I worked, who I worked with, what operations I'd been involved in. My weaknesses, my training, my psychological profile, my medical vulnerabilities. Someone had paid $8 million for that information. You don't spend that kind of money unless you plan to use it. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Estimated flight time to destination, 6 hours and 30 minutes. Weather looks good all the way. His accent was wrong too. Subtle, probably unnoticeable to anyone who hadn't spent years listening to regional dialects and speech patterns. But there, underneath the professional pilot cadence, was something that didn't match his supposed background. I opened my secure messaging system and typed carefully, "Kate, are you safe? Can you get somewhere else tonight?" The response came back 40 minutes later, bounced through 3 encrypted relays. Already gone. Staying with friends. What do we do? What did we do? My parents had committed treason. They'd sold classified military intelligence to foreign agents. They'd compromised ongoing operations and put lives at risk. They'd betrayed their own daughter for money. What did we do with that? I typed back, "Stay hidden. I'll contact you when I can." Then I deleted the conversation, wiped the message logs, and settled back in my seat. 6 hours and 30 minutes to figure out how to survive whatever was waiting for me at the other end of this flight. 6 hours and 30 minutes to decide what to do about the two people who'd brought me into this world and then sold me out of it for $8 million. I learned to fight when I was 8 years old. Not from martial arts classes or organized sports, but from defending Kate in the school parking lot. She was 6 then, small for her age, with thick glasses that made her an easy target for older kids looking to feel tough. The first time I stepped in, I got a black eye and a bloody nose. But the bullies left Kate alone after that. Word spread, mess with the little Johnson girl, and her big sister would make you pay for it. You don't have to do that, Kate said afterward while I held ice to my face. Yes, I do, I told her. That's what family does. I believed it then. Believed it for years, through high school and basic training and my first deployment. Family protects each other. Family sacrifices for each other. Family doesn't give up, doesn't walk away, doesn't quit when things get hard. When Dad's insurance business hit a rough patch during the recession, I picked up shifts at a diner to help with their mortgage. 16 years old, working until midnight, then up at 5 for school. My grades suffered, my social life disappeared, but the house stayed in the family. You're a good girl, Mom said, depositing my paycheck into their account. This is just temporary, until things stabilize. Things never stabilized. There was always another crisis, another emergency, another reason why I needed to step up. Kate's glasses, Dad's dental work, Mom's car repairs, all of it falling to me because I was the responsible one, the one who could handle it. College became community college. Community college became a part-time degree program that took 6 years instead of 4. My counselor suggested I was overcommit, that maybe I should focus on my own future instead of managing everyone else's problems. You don't understand, I told her. They need me. The military made sense partly because of the stable pay, the benefits, the security it would provide not just for me but for all of us. Mom cried when I left for basic training, real tears, not the performed emotion I'd grown accustomed to. Promise you'll be careful, she said, holding my hands at the bus station. I promise. Promise you'll call. I promise. Promise you'll remember that we love you. I promise. And I meant it. All of it. The promises, the belief that love was what motivated their tears, their concerns, their endless requests for help. During my first deployment, I sent money home every month. Not because they asked, though they did ask, but because I wanted to. Because taking care of family felt like purpose, like the point of working dangerous jobs in dangerous places. Kate was in high school then, just starting to figure out who she wanted to be. I'd call her when I could, listen to her talk about boys and teachers and friend drama that seemed monumentally important from her perspective. I miss you, she'd say. I miss you too, kid. Are you really okay over there? Mom and Dad worry all the time. I'm fine. Just doing my job. But even then, the questions were starting. Not from Kate, she just wanted her sister to come home safe. From our parents, who seemed more interested in what I was doing than whether I was doing it safely. So these other soldiers you work with, Dad would ask during our video calls, do any of them have specialties you're not supposed to talk about? Dad, I'm just curious about the career opportunities. Whether you're positioned for advancement. Career opportunities. Like the military was a corporate ladder I was climbing instead of a calling that might get me killed. The pattern continued through my second deployment, my third, my fourth. Each time I came home, there were more questions, more financial emergencies, more reasons why I needed to contribute more, share more, give more. But also more luxury items that didn't match their supposed financial struggles. Where did this come from? I asked about a new big screen TV during one visit. Credit, Mom said quickly. We'll pay it off when Dad's commissions improve. Mom, you guys are already carrying too much debt. Don't worry about it, honey. We're adults. We can manage our own finances. But they couldn't. Or wouldn't. There was always another crisis, another emergency, another reason why I needed to send money while they somehow acquired things they shouldn't have been able to afford. Kate started pulling away from them during her senior year of high school. Not dramatically, Not with arguments or confrontations, but with small acts of independence that our parents noticed immediately. "Your sister is being difficult," Mom complained during one of our calls. Difficult how? Secretive. Spending time away from home. Not telling us where she goes or who she's with. "Mom, she's 17. That's normal." It's disrespectful. After everything we've done for her. Everything we've done for her. As if keeping your child fed and housed was a favor you did rather than the basic responsibility of being a parent. But I still believed in family loyalty. Still believed that love meant sacrifice, that sacrifice meant giving until it hurt, that hurting for people meant they were worth the pain. Even when Kate started calling me with concerns. "They go through my room when I'm at school," she said during my 5th deployment. Looking for what? I don't know. But they move things. Look through my papers, my computer. "Mom asked me if you ever send me anything I'm not supposed to have." Like what? She didn't say. But she wanted to know if you ever told me about work stuff, or gave me anything to hold on to, or asked me to keep secrets. Warning bells should have gone off then. Should have been loud enough to hear from 6,000 miles away. But love makes you stupid sometimes. Makes you explain away things that don't have innocent explanations. "They're probably just worried," I told Kate. "Parents do weird things when they're stressed." "Maybe," she said. But she didn't sound convinced. Neither was I, really. But family loyalty was the foundation everything else was built on. Pull that out, and what did you have left? Now I knew you had the truth. $8 million worth of truth. The truth that love and loyalty were one-way streets in our house. That I'd been the only one driving toward connection while they were driving toward profit. The truth that they'd raised me not as a daughter, but as an investment. Fed me and housed me and supported me through school and training not because they loved me, but because they were building something they could eventually sell. The truth that every question about my work, every concern about my safety, every expression of parental pride had been market research. The truth that Kate had been trying to warn me for years, and I'd been too blinded by my own need to believe in family to see what was right in front of me. The truth that the two people I'd sacrificed everything for had been calculating my worth from the beginning. $8 million. That's what a lifetime of love and loyalty and sacrifice had been worth to them. That's what they'd gotten for selling their daughter. The mission went sideways in ways I couldn't have predicted and exactly as I should have expected. Nothing dramatic, no firefights or explosions or Hollywood-style action sequences. Just small things that felt wrong, logistics that didn't quite work, communications that lagged just long enough to matter. The kind of wrong that gets people killed quietly. We were supposed to be extracting intelligence from a facility in Eastern Europe. Standard operation, standard team, standard timeline. Except the intelligence wasn't where it was supposed to be. The facility layout didn't match our briefings, and the extraction route had been compromised. Someone had fed us bad information. Someone who knew our operational parameters, our team composition, our capabilities and limitations. Someone who'd had access to my complete military file. I didn't say anything to Martinez or the team. Couldn't say anything, because what was I supposed to explain? That my parents had sold me to foreign agents? That everything about this mission might be compromised because my own family had committed treason? Instead, I did my job. Adapted to changing circumstances, improvised solutions, kept my mouth shut and my eyes open. We completed the mission, barely, and returned home with minimal casualties and maximum questions about how our intelligence had been so spectacularly wrong. "Shit happens," Martinez said during the debrief. Bad intel, communication failures, fog of war. Par for the course. But it wasn't par for the course. It was targeted, deliberate, designed to test our responses and capabilities without triggering a full investigation. The kind of probing attack that happens when someone is building a comprehensive threat assessment. When someone is planning something bigger. Back home, I sat in my apartment for 3 days without calling anyone or answering my phone. Just thinking. Trying to process what had happened, what was still happening, what came next. Kate texted regularly, "Are you okay? Please respond. I'm worried." I finally called her on Thursday. "Jesus Christ, where have you been?" she said without preamble. "I've been imagining the worst." "I'm fine. Just thinking." "About what to do?" "About everything." There was a long pause. Then, they've been calling me. Mom and Dad. Asking if I've heard from you, if I know when you're coming back, if you mentioned anything about work. What did you tell them? Nothing. I told them nothing. But they're persistent. Dad came by my apartment yesterday. My blood went cold. What did he want? To know if you'd contacted me since your mission. He said they were worried, that you usually call them first thing when you get back. I hadn't called my parents first thing after missions in over a year. Hadn't called them at all, usually, unless they called me first with some emergency or crisis that required my immediate attention and financial assistance. But they were tracking my patterns, my communications, my habits. Of course they were. I was their investment. They needed to know when I was available for exploitation. Kate, you need to stay away from them. I know. I've been avoiding their calls, staying elsewhere most nights. But I can't hide forever. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. They're our parents. No, I said, surprised by the certainty in my voice. They're not. Not anymore. Another pause. When Kate spoke again, her voice was smaller, younger. What do we do now? What did we do? I'd been asking myself the same question for 3 days. Report them to military intelligence? Turn in my own parents for treason? Watch them get arrested, tried, sentenced to federal prison? Or handle it quietly, personally, in a way that protected Kate and eliminated the threat without destroying what was left of our family? Except there wasn't anything left of our family. There hadn't been for years, maybe decades. I'd just been too loyal, too naive, too desperate to believe in something that had never actually existed to see the truth. We disappear, I said finally. What do you mean? I mean we cut them off completely. No contact, no explanations, no second chances. We disappear from their lives like we never existed. But, Kate, they sold me. They took classified information about my work, my life, my security clearances, and they sold it to people who tried to kill me. They committed treason against their own daughter for money. There's no coming back from that. Silence. Then, very quietly, I know. Do you? Because this isn't temporary. This isn't punishment or a cooling-off period. This is permanent. Final. Forever. I know, she repeated. I've known for months. I kept hoping I was wrong. You weren't wrong. I kept hoping you'd figure it out before something bad happened. Something bad did happen. I survived it, but barely. What do you need from me? The question caught me off guard. After years of being the one who handled crises, who solved problems, who carried the weight of everyone else's needs, someone was asking what I needed. I need you to trust me, I said. I need you to follow my lead on this, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. I need you to understand that our parents are dangerous now, that they're not the people we thought they were, and that protecting ourselves means cutting them out completely. Okay. Kate, I said okay. I trust you. I've always trusted you. You're the only person in this family who ever protected me from anything. That night, I changed my phone number, closed my old bank accounts, and started the process of moving to a new apartment. Not because I was running. I'd never run from anything in my life, but because I was done being available for exploitation. I blocked my parents' numbers, their email addresses, their social media accounts. I removed them from my emergency contacts, my insurance beneficiaries, my military records. I erased them from my official existence as methodically as they'd tried to erase my security. It should have felt like loss. Should have felt like grief or sadness or the end of something important. Instead, it felt like relief. Like waking up from a nightmare I hadn't realized I was having. Like freedom. The first month was the hardest. Not because I missed them, I didn't, but because cutting off family is a decision you make every day, not once. Every morning I woke up and chose not to call, not to text, not to check their social media, not to drive past their house to see if they were okay. Every day, I chose my own safety over their comfort. It was the right choice, but that didn't make it easy. Kate struggled more than I did. She was younger, had fewer years of disappointment to insulate her from the loss. And she was still in college, still building her own life, still at an age where having parents felt necessary rather than optional. I dream about them sometimes, she told me during one of our weekly dinners. Just normal dreams, like how things used to be. And when I wake up, I forget for a minute why I can't call them. That's normal, I said. It'll fade. Will it? Because some days I wonder if we're overreacting. If maybe there's an explanation we haven't considered. I understood the impulse. The desperate need to believe that people you love are better than their worst actions, that there's some context or misunderstanding that makes betrayal into something forgivable. Kate, they sold classified military intelligence for $8 million. They put my life at risk, and the lives of everyone I work with. There's no explanation that makes that okay. I know, she said quietly. I just miss them sometimes. You miss the people you thought they were. The people they pretended to be. Is that different? Yes. It's completely different. The second month, they started trying harder to reach us. Not directly, they'd figured out that our phone numbers had changed, that their emails were being blocked. But through proxies. Cousins would call Kate. Your parents are worried sick. They just want to know if you're okay. Family friends would message me on LinkedIn. Harold and Margaret are concerned about you girls. Maybe you could give them a call. Our grandmother, Mom's mother, 83 years old and confused about why her granddaughters had suddenly stopped visiting, would leave voicemails. Honey, your mother says you're not returning her calls. Did something happen? She's so upset. Each contact was like a small knife, sharp and precise and aimed at the guilt I was trying not to feel. Because they knew me, knew us, knew exactly which buttons to push to make us question our decision. Your mother cries every day, one cousin told Kate. She doesn't understand what she did wrong. She doesn't understand what she did wrong. As if treason was some kind of miscommunication. As if selling your daughter's classified information was an innocent mistake that could be cleared up with a phone call and an apology. They're playing the victim, I told Kate after she relayed the conversation. Making themselves the injured parties, like we're the ones who did something wrong by refusing to be exploited. But what if, Kate? No. There's no what if. They made their choice when they decided I was worth $8 million. We're making ours by refusing to be commodities they can sell. The third month brought escalation. Not violence, they weren't stupid enough for that, but desperation disguised as concern. Dad showed up at Kate's university, claiming he was just visiting the campus. He waited by her dorm, casual and friendly, like he had every right to be there. I just want to talk, he told her when she tried to walk past. 5 minutes. Please. Kate called me from the campus security office, shaken. He looked so normal. So much like Dad that I almost forgot why I was avoiding him. What did security do? Escorted him off campus. Told him not to come back without permission. But he wasn't technically doing anything wrong. He's my father, he was on public property. He wasn't threatening anyone. That was the problem with family betrayal. It didn't look like betrayal from the outside. It looked like concerned parents trying to reconnect with estranged daughters. It looked like misunderstandings that could be resolved with communication and compromise. It looked normal. Meanwhile, the investigation into our compromised mission was beginning to yield results. Not results I could share with Kate, not results that would ever be made public, but results that confirmed what I already knew. Our operational intelligence had been sold to the highest bidder. Someone with access to classified information had provided detailed briefings to hostile agents, compromising not just our mission but several others. Someone was going to prison for treason. Multiple someones, probably, because this kind of information trafficking required networks, contacts, ongoing relationships with foreign intelligence services. But the investigation was slow, methodical, designed to uncover the full scope of the compromise without alerting the people responsible. Which meant I couldn't tell Kate that justice was coming, couldn't reassure her that our parents would face consequences for what they'd done. I could only trust the system and focus on protecting us in the meantime. I want to change my name, Kate said during dinner one night. Your last name. All of it. First, last, middle. I want to be someone completely different. I understood the impulse. The desire to shed any connection to people who'd proven themselves unworthy of genetic loyalty. To start over with a clean identity, free from the contamination of their choices. You can do that, I said. Legally, practically, completely. But think about it first. Make sure it's what you want, not just what you think you should want. I've been thinking about it for weeks. And And I don't want to share anything with them anymore. Not even a name. 6 months after cutting contact, we heard through extended family that they'd been arrested. Federal charges, the cousin said. Something about classified information and foreign agents and conspiracy. The whole thing is crazy, the cousin said. I mean, Harold and Margaret? They're just regular people. Insurance salesmen and housewives don't become international spies. But they hadn't been regular people. They'd been parents who saw their daughter as a business opportunity, who'd calculated the market value of love and found it profitable. They'd been traders. Kate cried when she heard the news. Not from sadness, from relief. It's over, she said. It's really over. The criminal part is over. The rest is just beginning. What rest? Learning how to be a family of 2 instead of 4. Learning how to trust people again. Learning how to have relationships that aren't based on exploitation. Is that possible? I think so. I hope so. Will you teach me? The question broke something open in my chest. For years, I'd been teaching Kate practical things: how to drive, how to balance a checkbook, how to defend herself in a parking lot. But this was different. This was teaching her how to recognize love that wasn't conditional, how to build relationships that weren't transactional, how to be part of a family that was based on choice rather than obligation. Yeah, I said. I'll teach you. Promise? I promise. And I meant it. All of it. The promise, the possibility, the hope that we could build something better from the ashes of what had been destroyed. That we could be family to each other in ways our parents had never been family to us. 2 years later, Kate graduated magna cum laude with a degree in computer science and a job offer from a tech company that didn't care about her family history. She kept the new name she'd chosen, Catherine Rivers, clean and professional and completely unconnected to the people who'd raised us. I was there for her graduation, sitting in the audience next to her boyfriend Henry, watching her walk across the stage with pride and relief and something that might have been happiness. Think they're watching somehow? Henry asked quietly. He knew the basics of our situation, enough to understand why Kate's emergency contacts didn't include parents, why family events were small and carefully planned. I don't care, Kate said later, over dinner. Whether they're watching or not watching, whether they're proud or angry or indifferent, none of it matters anymore. She was right. It didn't matter. They'd forfeited the right to participate in our victories when they decided we were commodities rather than children. My own career had flourished in ways I hadn't expected. Turns out that surviving betrayal makes you sharper, more aware, better at reading situations and people. The skills I developed protecting myself from my own family transferred beautifully to protecting my country from its enemies. I'd been promoted twice, assigned to increasingly sensitive operations, trusted with information and responsibilities that my parents would have found very valuable indeed. But they were in federal prison, serving concurrent sentences for espionage, treason, and conspiracy to commit acts against national security. They'd be eligible for parole in 18 years, assuming good behavior and cooperation with ongoing investigations. Sometimes I wondered if they understood what they'd lost. Not just their freedom, though that was significant. Not just their reputation or their social connections or their comfortable suburban life. But their daughters. Their family. The people who'd loved them unconditionally for decades before discovering that love was a one-way transaction. I wondered if they lay awake at night in their separate cells, thinking about Kate's graduation or my promotions or the grandchildren they'd never meet. I wondered if they felt regret that was deeper than getting caught, remorse that went beyond legal consequences. Mostly, though, I didn't wonder. Didn't waste energy on people who'd proven they weren't worth the investment. Kate and Henry got engaged that winter. A small ceremony, just close friends and chosen family, people who'd earned the right to celebrate with us through loyalty and consistency rather than genetic accident. Will you walk me down the aisle? Kate asked when they started planning the wedding. Are you sure? That's traditionally a father's job, I know. But I don't have a father anymore. I have a sister who raised me, protected me, taught me everything important I know about being a decent human being. I have a sister who chose me over people who were supposed to love us both. Kate, I want you to walk me down the aisle. I want the last person I see before I marry Henry to be the first person I learn to trust. The wedding was beautiful. Small but perfect, filled with people who understood that family isn't about biology. It's about choice, commitment, the decision to show up for someone even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. During the reception, Henry pulled me aside. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For raising the woman I love. For protecting her when the people who should have done it didn't. For teaching her what loyalty actually looks like. She taught me as much as I taught her." "Maybe. But you chose to be her family when your real family failed. That matters." That shaped who she became. He was right, though I'd never thought about it that way. In protecting Kate, I'd learned what family was supposed to feel like. In choosing her over our parents, I'd discovered what loyalty meant when it wasn't manipulated or exploited. In losing the family I'd been born into, I'd found the family I was meant to have. That night, after the wedding, I sat in my apartment going through old photos. Not of our parents, I'd destroyed those years ago, but of Kate and me. Christmas mornings, birthday parties, graduation ceremonies. Images of a relationship that had survived betrayal, abandonment, and the complicated process of rebuilding trust from scratch. In every photo, we were smiling. Not the performed smiles you put on for family obligations, but genuine expressions of joy, comfort, connection. We'd made it. Despite everything that had been done to us, despite the people who were supposed to protect us, despite the system that had failed us until we learned to protect ourselves, we'd made it. We were family. Real family. The kind that doesn't sell you for $8 million. The kind that chooses you every day over and over again. The kind that keeps you safe. 5 years after the arrests, I received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in my mother's careful script. "We know you'll never forgive us, but we want you to know we're sorry. We made terrible choices and lost everything that mattered. We hope you're happy. We hope Kate is happy. We hope someday you'll understand that we loved you, even though we showed it badly." Mom, I read it 3 times, waiting to feel something. Anger, sadness, forgiveness, closure, any emotional response that would help me process this attempt at reconciliation. Instead, I felt nothing. Not emptiness, not numbness, but complete indifference. Like reading a letter from strangers about people I'd never met. I showed it to Kate during our weekly dinner. She read it silently, then handed it back. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think they're still trying to manage us. Still trying to control the narrative, make themselves the victims of circumstances rather than the architects of consequences." "You think it's manipulative?" "I think it's too late. Whether it's manipulative or genuine doesn't matter anymore. They had decades to love us properly. They chose not to. They don't get to rewrite that history with a prison letter." She was right. Love isn't something you can claim retroactively. You can't betray someone and then insist the betrayal was actually love in disguise. Love is what you do, not what you say you felt while you were doing the opposite. I burned the letter that night. Not in anger, but as a practical matter. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed. Some relationships, once ended, don't deserve resurrection. Some people forfeit the right to forgiveness by the magnitude of their betrayal. Kate got pregnant the following year. A planned pregnancy, carefully timed, joyfully anticipated. She called me from the doctor's office, crying with happiness. "It's a girl," she said through tears. "We're having a daughter. Have you picked a name?" "Miranda. Miranda Elizabeth Riverschon." "That's beautiful. I want her to know her aunt. I want her to grow up understanding what family really means." "She will. We'll make sure of it." When Miranda was born, I was in the delivery room, holding Kate's hand while Henry coached her through contractions. The first person Miranda saw when she entered the world was her mother. The second was me. "She's perfect," Kate whispered, cradling her daughter against her chest. Miranda was perfect. Tiny and red and absolutely perfect. But more than that, she was safe. She would grow up in a family that chose her every day, that protected her unconditionally, that would never see her as anything other than a beloved child. She would never know her maternal grandparents, would never hear their voices, see their faces, or learn their names. Not because we were hiding her from them, but because they had no relevance to her life. They were strangers who shared some of her DNA. Nothing more. Do you ever regret it? Henry asked me one evening while we watched Miranda sleep. Cutting them off completely? Never giving them a chance to explain or make amends? I considered the question seriously. Because regret is complicated, especially when it comes to family. Even when people hurt you, even when they betray you, there's a part of you that wants to believe redemption is possible. But wanting something and it being true are different things. No, I said finally. I don't regret it. They made their choice when they sold my security file. I made mine when I decided my safety mattered more than their comfort. Both choices had consequences. I can live with mine. And if they get out of prison someday, if they try to contact Miranda or show up at family events, then we'll handle it. The same way we've handled everything else, together, carefully, with Miranda's well-being as the top priority. You really think they'd try? I think people who sell their own children for money are capable of anything. But I also think we're stronger now than we were then. Smarter. Better prepared. More protected. Exactly. More protected. Miranda grew into a bright, curious toddler who called me Auntie and climbed into my lap whenever I visited. She had Kate's eyes and Henry's stubborn streak and an absolute certainty that she was loved beyond measure. She was growing up in the kind of family I'd always wished we could have had. The kind where love wasn't conditional, where protection wasn't transactional, where being family meant something real and lasting. The kind of family we'd built from the ashes of the one that had failed us. On Miranda's second birthday, as we watched her tear through wrapping paper with single-minded determination, Kate leaned over and whispered, "Thank you." For what? For choosing me. For teaching me what loyalty looks like. For showing me how to build something better. You taught me just as much. Maybe, but you chose first. When it would have been easier to forgive them, to go back to the way things were, you chose me instead. You chose safety over sentiment. That changed everything. She was right. It had changed everything. The choice to prioritize our well-being over their comfort, our safety over their convenience, our future over their past, that choice had made everything else possible. Including this, Miranda's laughter filling a room full of people who loved her unconditionally. Kate's confidence as a mother, unshakable because she'd learned early what good protection looked like. Henry's integration into a family that was small but fierce, chosen rather than inherited. Including the knowledge that we'd broken a cycle of exploitation and betrayal that might have continued for generations. Including the certainty that we were safe. That night, after everyone had gone home and Miranda was asleep in her crib, I sat on Kate's porch watching stars appear in the dark sky. Thinking about the $8 million that had bought our parents nothing but prison sentences and the loss of everything that actually mattered. Thinking about the choice we'd made to value ourselves more than we valued their approval. Thinking about the family we'd built, the daughter we were raising, the future we'd created from the wreckage of the past. Thinking about the transport I'd almost boarded 5 years ago, the pilot who wasn't one of ours, the moment I'd realized my own parents had tried to sell me. $8 million. That's what they'd thought I was worth. Turns out, I was worth more than that. We both were. Worth enough to choose ourselves. Worth enough to build something better. Worth enough to be safe. The call came on a Tuesday morning in March, 7 years after we'd last spoken to our parents. I was at headquarters, reviewing intelligence reports, when my secure line rang with a number I didn't recognize. Major Johnson? This is Warden Patricia Collins from Federal Correctional Institution Hazleton. I'm calling regarding inmates Harold and Margaret Johnson. My blood went cold. In 7 years, I'd managed to forget they existed for long stretches of time. But hearing their names spoken aloud by a prison official brought everything rushing back, the betrayal, the investigation, the trial I'd testified at by a secured video link. What about them? Harold Johnson suffered a massive heart attack yesterday evening. He's been transferred to the medical facility, but his condition is critical. Margaret Johnson has requested that we contact you and your sister as next of kin. Next of kin. The words felt foreign, like they were spoken in a language I used to know but had forgotten. Is he expected to survive? The doctors aren't optimistic. His age, combined with the severity of the attack. I'm required to inform you that if you wish to visit, Arrangements can be made through the family notification system. I understand. Thank you for calling. I hung up and stared at my computer screen, the intelligence reports blurring into meaningless text. Harold Johnson, the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd helped with math homework, who'd sold classified information about my military service for $8 million, was dying in a federal prison medical ward. And I felt nothing. Not relief, not sadness, not closure. Just the same indifference that had settled over me years ago when I'd realized that some betrayals are too profound to forgive. I called Kate during my lunch break. "How do you feel about it?" she asked after I'd explained the warden's call. "Empty. Like hearing about a stranger." "Do you want to see him?" "Do you?" Long pause. "I keep thinking I should want to. Like there's some final conversation we're supposed to have, some deathbed reconciliation that ties everything up neatly. But I don't want to see him. I don't want to hear his excuses or his apologies or his justifications. I don't want to give him the comfort of thinking we've forgiven him just because he's dying." "Good," I said. "Because dying doesn't erase what someone did when they were living. Henry thinks we should consider it. For our own closure, if nothing else. Henry didn't grow up with them. He doesn't understand that some doors should stay closed." That's what I told him. But he worries that we'll regret it later. "Kate, in 7 years, have you regretted cutting them off?" "No. Never." "Then trust that instinct now." We didn't visit. Didn't send messages through the warden. Didn't acknowledge the man dying in the prison hospital except to confirm that we wanted no involvement in funeral arrangements or estate proceedings. Harold Johnson died 3 days later. The warden called again, brief and professional, to notify us of his death and ask about our preferences for handling his remains. "We've made arrangements for cremation through the prison system," I told her. "No services, no notification to extended family." "What about his personal effects?" "Dispose of them." "Are you certain?" "There are some family photographs, letters, I'm certain." "We want nothing." Margaret would serve out the rest of her sentence alone. Another 8 years, assuming good behavior. She was 67 now, unlikely to survive the full term. But that was no longer our concern. That evening, I sat in my apartment thinking about closure, what it means, whether it's necessary, how you know when you've achieved it. Henry wasn't wrong to worry about regret. In a culture that valorizes forgiveness and reconciliation, choosing to let someone die without offering absolution feels harsh. But harshness is sometimes appropriate. Some betrayals are so fundamental, so destructive, that forgiveness becomes complicity. Some people forfeit the right to your presence, your consideration, your emotional labor by their actions. Harold and Margaret Johnson had forfeited those rights when they decided their daughter's life was worth $8 million. They died as they'd lived in their final years, strangers to the people they'd raised. Kate's second pregnancy was different from her first. More complicated, both medically and emotionally. She was older, more tired, carrying the weight of raising a 3-year-old while building her career as a software engineer. But also more confident. More certain of her choices, her priorities, her ability to protect the family she'd built. "It's a boy this time," she told me during one of our weekly dinners. "We're thinking about names. Any frontrunners?" "David, maybe. After Henry's grandfather. Or James. Those are good names." Miranda keeps suggesting ridiculous options. Yesterday, she wanted to name him Dinosaur. I laughed, watching my niece color at the kitchen table, completely absorbed in creating what appeared to be a purple elephant wearing a tutu. "Auntie," Miranda said without looking up from her drawing, "why don't I have other grandparents like Emma does?" Emma was her best friend at preschool, whose extended family included multiple sets of grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, and uncles who showed up for every birthday party and school event. Kate and I exchanged glances. We'd prepared for this question, knew it was inevitable, but that didn't make it easier to answer. "Some families are big, and some families are small," Kate said carefully. "Our family is small, but we love each other very much." "But where are your mommy and daddy?" They're not part of our family anymore." "Why not?" "Sometimes adults make choices that mean they can't be part of a family." "It's complicated, sweetheart." Miranda seemed to accept this explanation, returning to her drawing with the easy adaptability of childhood. But I knew the questions would get harder as she got older, more specific, more difficult to answer without explaining concepts that no child should have to understand. How do you tell a 7-year-old that her grandparents sold her aunt to foreign agents? How do you explain treason in terms that don't destroy her faith in family, in safety, in the basic reliability of adults? We'll figure it out as we go, Kate said later, after Miranda had gone to bed. Age-appropriate honesty. Emphasis on the family we've built rather than the one we lost. And if she wants to know more details when she's older, then we'll tell her. All of it. She deserves to understand why we made the choices we made, why her family looks different from other families. Even the classified parts? The broad strokes, yeah. She'll need to understand that some secrets are worth protecting, that some loyalties are more important than others. Kate was right, but the conversation stayed with me. The complexity of raising children with full knowledge of family history, of helping them understand betrayal without becoming cynical, of teaching them to trust while staying vigilant. Miranda would grow up knowing that her mother and aunt had been strong enough to walk away from people who'd hurt them. That family was about choice and protection, not genetics and obligation. That love wasn't unconditional, that it had to be earned and maintained through consistent actions. These weren't easy lessons, but they were true ones. And truth, even difficult truth, was better than the comfortable lies I'd grown up believing. The investigation into the intelligence breach that had compromised my mission finally concluded 8 years after the arrests. The full scope of the damage was classified, but I was briefed on the relevant details as both a victim and a witness. Our parents had been part of a larger network, recruited gradually over several years through seemingly innocent social connections. What had started as casual questions about my work had evolved into systematic intelligence gathering, then active selling of classified information to foreign contacts. They weren't masterminds or ideological traitors. They were assets, ordinary people motivated by financial pressure and gradually drawn deeper into espionage activities they probably never fully understood. The $8 million hadn't been their only payment. Bank records showed smaller transfers over 3 years, totaling another $2 million. They'd been selling information about my colleagues, my assignments, my unit's capabilities and limitations. $10 million total. That's what their daughter and her safety had been worth to them. The damage was significant but contained, Colonel Martinez told me during the briefing. We were able to identify and neutralize the entire network, modify operational procedures to account for the breach, and implement new security protocols. How many people were put at risk? Dozens directly. Hundreds indirectly. But because we caught it relatively early, casualties were minimal. Minimal casualties. Military speak for people died, but it could have been worse. People had died because my parents sold secrets for money. People with families, with children, with futures that had been cut short by my family's greed. That knowledge settled into my chest like a stone, heavy and permanent. Not guilt, I hadn't chosen their actions, but responsibility. The weight of understanding that my genetics had connected me to people capable of causing such harm. None of this was your fault, Colonel Martinez said, reading my expression. You were a victim of this conspiracy, not a participant. I know that intellectually. But emotionally it's more complicated. Yeah, emotionally it's more complicated. For what it's worth, your actions probably saved lives. Your sister's warning, your quick thinking during the mission, your cooperation with the investigation, all of it helped us respond faster and more effectively than we would have otherwise. It was worth something, but not everything. Not enough to balance the scales completely. That night, I called Kate and told her about the briefing. The parts one was allowed to share anyway. How do you carry that? She asked. Knowing that people died because of them? The same way I carry everything else. One day at a time, focused on what I can control instead of what I can't. And what can you control? Making sure it never happens again. Making sure Miranda grows up understanding the difference between loyalty and exploitation. Making sure our family, the real one, stays safe. That's enough. It has to be. Miranda started asking more sophisticated questions when she turned 8. Not about our parents directly, but about family structure, about why some people made bad choices, about how you knew who to trust. How do you know if someone really loves you? She asked one evening while I was helping with her homework. What makes you ask that? Emma's dad left last month. Her mom says he didn't love them enough to stay. But Emma thought he loved her. I set down the pencil I'd been using to check her math problems. This was the kind of conversation that required full attention. Love is shown through actions, not just words, I said carefully. Someone who really loves you will protect you, support you, be honest with you, and put your well-being before their own comfort. But what if they say they love you but do mean things? Then they're lying, either to you or to themselves. Did your mommy and daddy lie about loving you? There it was. The question I'd been preparing for since she was old enough to notice that Kate and I were each other's only family. Yes, I said. They did. How do you know? Because people who love you don't hurt you for money. They don't put you in danger to make themselves rich. They don't betray your trust for any reason. Miranda absorbed this information with the serious expression she wore when processing something important. Is that why they're not allowed to be part of our family? That's exactly why. Good, she said with 8-year-old certainty. Our family is better without mean people. Yes, it is. That conversation became the template for others as Miranda grew older. Age-appropriate honesty about difficult topics, emphasis on the positive choices we'd made rather than the negative ones our parents had made, clear explanations about why some people couldn't be trusted with access to our lives. By the time she was 12, Miranda understood that her aunt had been a soldier, that her grandparents had betrayed military secrets, and that her mother had been brave enough to walk away from people who'd hurt her family. She understood that family was something you built through choice and maintained through loyalty. She also understood that she was safe, that the adults in her life would protect her, that the family she'd been born into was strong and honest and committed to her well-being above all else. I'm proud of you and Mom, she told me on her 13th birthday. For being brave enough to choose better. We're proud of you too, kiddo. For being exactly who you are. Do you think I'll ever meet them? My grandparents. Do you want to? No, she said without hesitation. I just wonder sometimes if they wonder about me. Maybe they do. But it doesn't matter what they wonder. What matters is what you know, that you're loved, protected, and part of a family that chose you every single day. I know that. Good. Don't forget it. She never did. Even through the typical teenage years of testing boundaries and questioning authority, Miranda never doubted that Kate and I were completely committed to her safety and happiness. Never doubted that our small family was built on truth rather than convenience. Never doubted that she was worth more than any amount of money someone might offer for information about her life. The certainty we'd given her, that family meant protection, that love required action, that some people forfeited the right to your presence through their choices, became the foundation for every relationship she built as she grew older. She chose friends who were loyal and honest. She dated people who respected her boundaries. She made career decisions based on her own values rather than other people's expectations. She grew up to be exactly the kind of person I'd hoped she would become, strong, discerning, generous with people who deserved it, and appropriately cautious with people who hadn't earned her trust. She grew up safe. That was worth more than $8 million. That was worth everything. Thanks for sticking with me. If this hit home, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs stronger boundaries. Your turn. What would you have done the moment you saw the pilot wasn't ours? Have you ever cut off family to protect yourself? How did it play out? What red flags did you ignore, and what will you do differently next time? What's one boundary you're setting this week? Drop your answers in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. New episodes every week.